Good morning or evening if you happen to be on the other side of the pond. Um, Welcome to the OnyxPathCon 2021 World of Darkness panel. I'm Travis Legge, the programming coordinator for our Twitch channel, sometimes mage developer, and today panel host. I would like to pass around to allow everyone to do their introductions, talk a little bit about who they are, what they do. I will choose one of the assembled and ask you to please share your name, who you are, your pronouns, what you've worked on for the World of Darkness, maybe an interesting factoid about yourself, and then pass that to another panelist until it gets back to me, and then we'll start talking about the World of Darkness. While we're doing that, those of you who are in chat, thank you for joining us. If you have any questions for the assembled, please type question in all caps at the beginning of your question in the Twitch chat so that we spot it. If you're feeling extra saucy, you can redeem some of them chips of Onyx, which is our channel currency, to highlight your message. It's a fancy way of making extra sure that we see what you have typed. Kat, by all means, please.
C'est moi. Hi, I'm Kat Evans. I write RPGs for my day job and also my side hustle and also for my hobby because I have no off switch. And I've been playing World of Darkness games for over 20 years. I'm not sure whether that's interesting or just a cry for help.
And who would you like to go next?
Oh, who should I pick on? I'm going to pick on Erica.
Oh, it's me. Okay. I am Erica Mahoney. I am she, her. I have been working with / playing / running RPGs for about, 14 years now, which makes me feel really old. I can't imagine how it makes Kat feel.
Damn! Shots fired! Oh! I gotta go!
I didn't mean it like that!
I'm not old, I'm just low generation. God.
Yeah, no, we just have too much time on our hands and enough to fill it with. That's all. Let's see. I have been working on the Ghost Hunters Paranormal Investigators Handbook and the Apocalyptic Record that is coming out soon-ish. Let's see. Interesting fact about me. I don't know. I have a dog who thinks she owns the entire house in the world. So I'm sure you'll see her pop up on panel soon because she can't be without her mom for more than 2 minutes. So apologies in advance. And since that's me, I guess we are going to James next.
Nagote, my name is James Sambrano or JF. Either one's fine. I use he, they pronouns, and I'm not going to tell you how long I've been playing because I see how the previous two fell into that trap. I'll just say that I've been playing since I was 16, and we'll leave it at that. And I think it leaves me kind of safe. I also worked on the Apocalyptic Record, and I think I've written on about half of the Mage 20th books and been credited in some way or another on almost like all of them except for like one maybe. So I have a lot of Mage work.
Yes, the assembled are very werewolf mage oriented. So if you have questions about those things specifically, we can answer most of them. I think. And yeah, since we're all showing our respective lengths of time in the hobby, if the gray in my beard were not indication enough, I played my first Dungeons and Dragons game 32 years ago. Holy cow! I mean, I was like 5, and I was sitting over my brother's shoulder. I had no idea what I was doing. Was remarkably literate for my age, but still not literate enough to grasp AD&D. But yeah, 35-ish years, 37 years. Ugh, I'm old. So now that that's out of the way, and we can all revel in our elderliness.
I don't know why I didn't pull Seder on this panel so you could like take that over for us.
Right, yeah.
None of us have to worry about it.
How do you summon Satyr? We may not be able to talk about that. Get ourselves TOS'd. Speaking of mage, we have a couple of things sort of in the hopper that are coming soon. Specifically, I'd like to talk a little bit about Operative's dossier for the Technocracy because it's close to my heart. And a little bit about lore traditions. We can't get too far into that because that is just at the approval stage with Paradox. So anything specific we mention to you may prove to be wrong by the time it makes it into your hot little hands. But we can talk a little bit about that. So I guess where would you like to start in the mage discussion? We'll go with JF. Which of those would you like to touch on first?
Well, I mean, you mentioned Operative's dossier. How much that, like, can I say, like, what I worked on?
We can talk about Operative's dossier. Let's not spoil the whole book. Don't like start reading the rules.
Well, I don't. Don't worry.
Don't
worry. I throw it in the trash as soon as I send it off to you. Right. I don't read them ever again.
People let me dispel a notion for anybody who might be watching. Game designers forget the rules once they leave our fingers and go to the keyboard. We have to go back and look too, just like everybody else does.
I think players know that. They remind us frequently that we forget the rules.
That's true.
I think my favorite section on Operative's dossier to work on was I don't remember the exact name of the chapter, but you had me do the, like, how do we deal with, like, non-mage threats? Like in a traditions mage book could be like the shadow folk, right? And I created some NPCs in there that could help you in your games, that if you're fans of the other game lines that I think you'll be tickled by. I made one shapeshifter who was not like, I feel like my approach to doing the what would we call them? The Therianthropes?
Terianthropes.
Terianthropes. Yeah. Okay. Shapeshifters, right? And I think a lot of times when you think technocracy, you tend to be like, oh, glasswalkers. I went in a different tech-focused breed direction, and the technocracy is not going to have a good time, and I think it's going to be fun.
I love any opportunity we have to give the technocracy.
Oh, they deserve it.
They do. They really do.
And how?
Well, and one of the things that was fun about that bit, actually, too, is there's a concept that's kind of introduced in Technocracy Reloaded, which is just about ready to be, like, in stores. Like, it's finishing up its last passes. People are getting proofs, and if you can still pre-order it on BackerKit, I believe. If you can, you should. But we introduced a little bit of the Amazon Basin damage control, or as it is affectionately known among the union, the Docs box, where they've decided that deforestation has to stop no matter what the cost. Therefore, throw hit marks and saber-toothed tigers at anybody who's deforesting until it stops. Maybe not the best plan, but it's their plan. And so that gives an interesting place where mage and werewolf, particularly more so the Farah, can rub noses and claws and bullets in an interesting and fun way. As frenemies, maybe, if you're very, very, very lucky, but more likely just a bloody smear across the Amazon.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the Amazon plot hooks that I wrote in something else, and honestly, bloody smear seems most likely.
Exactly. So I guess speaking of dossier then, Kat, did you want to touch base a little bit about what people can expect on the sections you worked on dossier?
So I think you're really going to enjoy the constructs that we all put together, which are, none of them really are like your standard black suits and mirror shades technocracy. There's a lot of tools there for you to get inside the technocracy and see a completely different set of problems than what your tradition-based reality deviants usually see. I hope you're also going to enjoy the terrible virus I unleashed from the Antarctic construct to take over the world. I mean, good luck with that. I guess that's on you now. But I think the coolest thing in there is all of the updates that we have to the Technocracy's tools and practices. Like there is a really, really cool augmented reality section in there that I think is going to change a lot of the way people use the digital web. I think that's really neat.
Super fun. And another sort of, I guess, jumping to the other mage book, if it survives the approval process, I without getting too spoilery, I can say that the Technocracy has embraced augmented reality maybe in a way that the traditions who prefer the digital web haven't, and are sort of, for the first time since their inception, maybe a little bit behind the eight ball on a technical jump regarding the digital web. And how does that play out? So that's going to be a fun thing to or as well. And so sort of non-segueing into Werewolf, as two of you worked on both of those, and all three of you have worked on the Apocalyptic Record, how did that or any of the other stuff that's going on right now in Mage 20, if at all, play into what's happening in the Apocalyptic Record? And what can you tell us about what we can expect with that book? And I think we should, the what can we expect, let's toss that first to Erica, because I haven't.
So Apocalyptic Record is really exciting. I'm so glad to have worked on it. It's wrapping up Werewolf 20th edition. It has chapters for all of the different auspices. We have different vignettes that describe and detail different plot hooks. I'm really excited to get this book in people's hands. It's going to have a lot of great content for them to run the apocalypse, whether they want to run something as minor as, stopping deforestation to something as major as shutting down every deforestation company in the entire world, for example. There are lots of different ideas, different stories. Everyone came together and did a really, really great job on this book. I'm excited for it.
Sweet. Awesome. And for the rest, you can fight in the street over which one of you answers first. Anything to expand or add on that?
I go.
You go.
Oh my God. Okay, so I don't know how much I'm allowed to talk about what I wrote on there actually, so I want to be really careful. But I will say that, as can probably be expected by people who know about like what my non-gaming writing focuses are, I took a stab at writing a lot about the peer tribes, a name which I am critical of, but we can talk about that another time. I tried to write them in ways that talked about, because I find that sometimes, especially in Werewolf, mages sometimes with the traditions guilty of this too, but especially in Werewolf, that indigenous characters tend to be represented as being kind of like what we jokingly in our community call as authentic, like wearing the buckskins and the rattle shirts and the headdresses and stuff like that. And I tried to. There's one particular younger brother character in there who makes a reference about how he's even better looking than Adam Beach, and so you should like appreciate him for that. And so like I'm hoping I represented those particular tribes in ways that feel less like, what's the right word, like hokey, and more like this is how real Indians talk to each other.
Right, less Hollywood authentic and more actual.
More just how we are, just how we are.
More of a realistic approach.
Yeah.
Writing them like actual people, Jay. What?
I know. Like, sorry, I didn't wear my headdress today from my tribe that doesn't wear headdresses.
But how will anyone know?
Yeah, no one will know.
Oh well.
Positive.
Meanwhile, I was busy pretty much wrecking the concept of the Gary Nation and doing what I love to do, which is focusing on the different ideas and the different objectives of different generations of werewolves and challenges to Garo hierarchy as the apocalypse arrives and people start trying more and more desperate and stupid and doomed to fail things. Because tearing things apart is kind of what I do, I guess.
I guess that brings up a point, and I'd like to get everybody's thoughts on this because we are in an interesting phase, I would say, of the world of darkness as a whole, right? And it's not the first time the world of darkness has been here, but it's a very different feeling, right? The world of darkness has been hit with an apocalypse. It's been ended. It's been done. That happened, and a team in a specific time, in a specific context, did that once already. Right? And so now, as we are making that transition from 20th anniversary edition to the 5th edition sort of setting and rule set, we get the, I think, incredibly fun and cool opportunity to sort of button up some loose ends, address some things, try to make some, reshape some things so that we're setting up the next phase of the game to be as from as strong of a starting point as possible. Trying to set everything up so it's as good as possible for the Paradox and whoever they partner with to run those to the next phase. But also it gives us an opportunity to kind of look back, reflect, maybe course correct some things that maybe didn't get the best start for whatever long litany of reasons they didn't. So how has that experience been for you as a creator? And can you talk a little bit about the biggest challenges, maybe, and the biggest joys of that process? I'll start with Erica again.
Oh, goodness.
And then you can pass it to whoever you like. And then
Okay.
I'll just sit back here and quietly vape for a little bit while you talk.
Okay. Let's see. So I, specifically speaking about the apocalyptic record for Werewolf 20th, I got the opportunity to write about the Thurges, and I got to create an entirely new plot hook for this. Let's see how much detail I can go into without spoiling. It's something that concerns all werewolves. It's something big. And it was an interesting and exciting and enjoyable challenge because, like you said, the apocalypse has already happened. It's there. You can't argue with it. So, our challenge as content creators was, how do we, at least for me, how do we take that information and build on it? Not necessarily negate it, but build on it. The apocalypse has already happened. So what on earth could possibly scare these werewolves into action even more than they already are? And that was really interesting to get to play with, especially for the story hooks, the plot hooks, what we created within our own chapters and vignettes. So I think, despite the fact the apocalypse has happened, I think people are going to find that there's a lot more to explore after the end of the world, or even during the end of the world. And I'm excited to see how they react to that. It's, I think, going to be a good time. And let's see, since Kat decided to pick on me earlier, we're going to pick on Kat. So Kat can go next.
So the hardest part, I think, is also the most fun part, which is trying to honor all of those, what are we on now, nearly 30 years of lore, rather than write anything out or strictly change it, find a way to update it and make sure that people who love whatever piece of trivia is your current bugbear are still going to find something cool in what you've written. Can I think of an example that's not spoilery? Probably not.
If you want to lean more into, because again, just in case you missed the note that we mentioned earlier, and I would like to reiterate, Apocalyptic Record is very much a ways away, and there's a whole lot of approvals and editing and things between now and then. So things that we mentioned about that, more likely to shift footing. So if you want to lean into something that was in Operative's dossier, as an example, just throwing that out there, that is an option. That's less likely to shift at this.
I'm going to lean into another book that hasn't been published yet and say,
Sure.
I think that when people read the Council of Nine chapter in Lore of the Traditions, I think I've managed to present a lot of different ways to use the council however you want to, but also take apart some of the idea that like the council is an organized entity with a strong agenda and a clear hierarchy, which is something that never used.
One of my favorite
Yeah.
misconceptions about Mage.
Right. The idea that if you put like 2 tradition mages in a room, they won't immediately find 3 different viewpoints to argue over.
Right.
So it was really fun to develop them and to develop some in-world reasoning for why they're so fractious and how you can exploit that as a storyteller and as a group of players, rather than just go, no, they're like this, they've always been like this. You know what I mean?
Cool. And again, apologize for the interruption, but I just figured that was a good point to make.
You can always interrupt me and say, talk about Mage more. That's fine.
So, JF, how about you?
So the question was how we're. I think I've been listening to what everyone was talking about and lost track of the actual question. Can you remind me?
So I
Sorry.
think the basic question was, in that, what were the difficulties and the joys of addressing, of kind of buttoning up, because in a sense, 20th anniversary edition, is coming to its end very much so with the apocalyptic record for Werewolf. All to a lesser degree also for Mage, that there's an end in sight, right? So what were the greatest challenges and the greatest joys of working in that space, creating in that space?
One thing I talk about a lot with Werewolf fans when I get a chance to talk to them is that like my own experience of being introduced to that game. And I want to be clear that I don't have this belief that 90s White Wolf was this paragon of diversity enlightenment. However, compared to the gaming world at the time that I experienced, it did feel that way at the time. And when I opened up Werewolf the Apocalypse, I was kind of shocked and overjoyed to see that despite problems with representation, that there were still 2 different groups I could choose from that represented indigenous characters. Plus, I think you have like 1, 2, at least 3 others that represent. I've really thought about it more, but 3 others that largely represent marginalized groups. Period. And I came from an era. I guess I did just give away how old I was now, but anyway, I came from an era. I came from an era when trying to sit down at a D&D gaming table sometimes went sideways because people would not speak of who you were very kindly. And of course that issue still exists, but it was kind of like this revelation to see that a gaming line could do something more and do something better. I remember when I first read Vampire, I was blown away that all of the pronouns in it were she, because at the time, like women in particular were extremely excluded from the gaming table. So I guess where I'm trying to get to is like it has been like a great honor and joy for me to be able to address at least some of those marginalized groups, and not only like give some of the love that I've held for them over the years and fill them with those feelings, but also to be able to like just skew perspectives on them just enough so that they didn't look as like wooden and as like written from a perspective of someone who wasn't part of that community. And that's I've really, like, in particular in these 2 game lines, I really enjoyed the chance to address older and younger brother. I really enjoyed the chance to address the dream speakers. I think it's okay for me to say that that's what I wrote in the tradition.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay.
You can talk about if the chapter you wrote in lore changes at this point, we got problems. So
yeah, no, I was gonna say if you want me to go back, if you want me to go back and make me the Celestial Chorus author, like I can, I don't mind dealing with Terry if I have to.
I would actually love to see that.
Excellent. Yeah, you can absolutely talk in a broad term about like what section of the book you worked in.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a big spoiler to say Lore of the Tradition is going to have a chapter on each tradition. I think that's probably fair to say. So, yeah, and I guess again, like we talked about this a little bit on the Mage 20 panel, just in terms of like addressing things and that from the past, addressing the way that some of these things were in the past. And I guess to reiterate, the thoughts that were shared then, and to expand on it a little bit, because I think it's very interesting that you mentioned at the time, quantum leap that World of Darkness vampire with its using of she as the basic pronoun, for example. Change is incremental, and we have a very hard time as a species coping with that, because we look around at everything that's on fire and we're like, why is that on fire, and how come nobody stopped it? But what we have a very hard time doing is looking down the road, back down the road 10 years and being like, oh yeah, we put out a lot of fires, guys. We unfortunately have a lot more, but we put out a lot of fires, and so I think it's not a reason to rest on your laurels, but you can celebrate that without doing so, and you can use that momentum to pull yourself further forward, I think, maybe. And I hope that that's the case with the work that we're doing. So did you have more, or because I just sort of feel like I cut you off for a second there.
Oh, no. I mean, I could talk about this forever. I just don't think you necessarily want me to. So
well, if people want to hit us with questions in the chat, happy to answer them. If other panelists have points that they would like to play off of that, by all means, let's do so. But if you also have more to expand on, we got a minute or two left. Go for it, Knox. I didn't realize how late it was. Holy cow. And now I'm all confused. But we have a half hour left. I'm sorry. We have 32 minutes left, right? Am I right on my time? We started at half past? This is what happens on the third day of a convention, folks.
If this is an hour, we have half an hour.
Yeah.
This is your Sunday morning panel.
We have time. Knock yourself out. Yeah. If there's more elaboration you'd like to do, by all means.
I just wanted to add, I think sometimes you run into a fan argument about whether or not World of Darkness was addressing social issues at the time. And although unquestionably, from our vantage point here, being about 30 years after the original books came out, we can look back and be like, oh, look at these issues, look at these problems. We have, books that were named slurs. Like there's lots of things that were a problem, right? But you can also see, if you pay attention, that the people who were writing it were trying for what they were dealing with in their era. The she, her pronouns, like what do the Bruja care about in vampire? Like the fact that any Indians, let alone two different tribes that had indigenous members, were in werewolf. You have entire, and again, we can argue about how good the representation was, but you have entire groups of them in Changeling. Like there was definitely like, the Black Furies are one of my favorite tribes, and even though again we can argue about how they've been represented, the fact was that someone at the company said, we recognize that in our group and in gaming especially, that women are really treated poorly, so let's make a group that tries to like really lift them up and make them powerful and strong in a way that other people can't hold them down.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think also World of Darkness, with whoever has owned the brand over the years, has always been one of the most honest game lines, in a sense. Like, it's very quick, and the writers are very quick to say, we could have done this better than we did, let's update it, let's try and catch up with the current generation of thinking, because on social issues things move so fast. Like, a concept can be out of date or can have been reimagined between you writing a book and it getting to print. And I don't think there are many companies out there who care as much as the people who make World of Darkness do about making sure that they do as little harm as possible.
Well, and again, speaking as somebody who spent 25, 30 years playing almost exclusively Cultists of Ecstasy, I can tell you that our perceptions of time are A, weird, and B, wrong. It's very different. If I say something, I grew up in rural Wisconsin, and I'm going to do my best to not shit on that part of the country for a minute, but let me go into a really weird and personal segue. I grew up in an area where to say that the race relations between white folks and indigenous folks is strained would be putting it lightly. Okay, so if I were to say something in a conversation that I had never in my life thought of as being, racist, prejudiced, just a phrase I had heard growing up, and JF were to be like, dude, that's fucked up. You shouldn't use that term, and here's why. I can go, shit, sorry, that's fucked up, and I'll never use that term again. Thank you. A little harder to do that with multiple books that are all in various stages of publication. Like, when a community says, dude, that's messed up, we need to change this, even the most agile publication company has to, like, it takes time to roll those changes out. It takes time for those to affect things. And I do think that there is something to be said for for acknowledging that work is being done. There's also absolutely something to be said for keeping people's feet to the fire about it. You know what I mean? Like, that's necessary. But I also think that sometimes because we are in a culture of instant communication, we sometimes forget that is different work in the space of stewarding a brand or a setting than it is in your own personal interactions. Does that make sense, and is that fair to say? Yes. Yeah, so we did have a bunch of questions pour in. First up, we have what can you tell us about the Paranormal Investigator's Handbook? Erica, I believe you're best equipped to answer that.
Yes, I am. So the Paranormal Investigator's Handbook is, spin-off is the wrong word. It's a supplement to Ghost Hunter's book. In Paranormal Investigator's Handbook, we explored a bunch of different tools and equipment that a ghost hunter could use to paranormally investigate. And a lot of those were really cool. I didn't work on that chapter, but I was a huge fan of what was done with all of that equipment and gear. There is an entire chapter on new monsters and enemies. I did work on that. I'm so happy with how it turned out. I'm excited to see people get their hands on these antagonists that I created and put them into their story. Some of them are familiar. If you don't know them by the specific name that I've called them in the book, the lore behind this archetype, or, you're familiar with the myth that could have led to this specific creature. So that was exciting. That was a lot of fun. And then we had a lot of story hooks and plot hooks that do tie back into the main Ghost Hunters book. So they kind of work together. I did not work on Ghost Hunters. I know Kat did. But
I worked on the Jumpstart.
On the Jumpstart. But yeah, so that's mostly what the Paranormal Investigator's Handbook is a supplement to Ghost Hunters that really gives you more options with how to explore and what you're exploring. And I'm really stoked with how that book turned out. I'm really excited to get it in people's hands.
Sweet. And to sort of follow up on that, another question was, I love the inclusion of the Ashuki Corporation. I hope I'm not mangling that pronunciation. In World Darkness Ghost Hunters. Have any of you included other mummy references in the books on which you are working?
Since I am talking about Paranormal Investigator's Handbook specifically, I can say that there are inclusions from not only Mummy, but from a lot of the other lines too. So stay tuned for that.
Excellent. Yeah, you sneaking in mummies?
Sneaking in mummies.
Oh, not to be a Debbie Downer, but I generally don't like to cross the streams when I'm writing, because the way storytellers include different groups in their own version of the World of Darkness is so varied. I can't possibly predict how you're going to want to do that. If I'm writing a mage book, I will write you cool mage content, and you can put it in your mummy campaign however you want to do it.
Which must make me an incredibly frustrating developer to work for, and I'm sorry.
No?
That's funny because my answer,
referring.
I was about to throw you under the bus for my answer and say that I have written like other lines into the book that met the word count devil whose name is Travis. So I could not include a lot of things I would have loved to, and the answer ultimately is no.
I know that's very true. There were a lot of things I was like, oh, we should, all I can really say is keep an eye on once all these things are out in the wild. Definitely keep an eye on Storyteller's Vault for all the stuff that we couldn't fit or that didn't make it, or because we all love this stuff too and want to see it out there. And there are realities to publication that we just can't dodge. But we have a nice workaround in the Storyteller's Vault community content program, which if you're not familiar with, you should go to storytellersvault.com and familiarize yourself with, because there's a lot of cool stuff there. Somebody had asked one more Hunter question. Would we get some imbued representation?
I'm going to pass that one to Kat, I think. I'm not best equipped to answer that one, so I'm going to pass that one off.
To the best of my knowledge, we're unlikely to see imbued again for a while.
That's I believe, the official answer that we regarding the. So just to shift gears, I guess, a little bit back toward where the apocalyptic record. Kind of one question that came up is will this be a lead into Werewolf 5th similar to Beckett's Jihad Diary? And what can you say about the coordination with the team that is presently working on Werewolf 5th edition in light of the answer to whatever the answer to that question is?
Yes and no, which is a super helpful answer, right? Like Beckett's Jihad Diary in the sense that it is a survey and a summary of the world as it enters the apocalypse. It does a lot of wrapping up. It touches on a lot of issues, frankly, that the Garu thought they'd left behind, which they now have to clean up or face even more serious consequences of them as they enter this new age. But it doesn't directly connect to anything that you're going to see in Werewolf 5. It is very much a hard break between the end of one era and the start of the next.
Sweet. Any further elaborations on that?
I think Kat summed it up pretty well. Like she said, it was presented to us as a writing team that it would be similar to Beckett's Diary. With it all coming together, it certainly appears that way. It feels that way. But like Kat said, we were under no impression that this was going to be leading into W5. We understood that this was the hard end to W20, and that's kind of where it is.
Anything further, JF?
I mean, I imagine Kat and I were invited to work on it because of some of the previous work we've done that, I think Matthew might have like appreciated and wanted to see in Werewolf. So as far as I don't think I can say a lot more than that. I think I'm going to stop there.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Probably wise.
Yeah.
That's fair. And awesome. Shifting gears quite a bit. Is there a topic you want to explore and or for which you would love to write a source book? I'm going to go ahead and assume this is just in general in the world of darkness. And let's start with JF.
Oh my gosh, a million. I would love to write anything on Wraith. I could think of a million things on Wraith. I'd love to write because it's my second favorite game after Mage. And that opportunity hasn't yet come up for me. So I'm just going to say it publicly in front of other Onyx Path people. But anyway, I'd really love to do a kind of like a big Nanahe Nations rewrite, because I've never loved kind of how they were presented in the books. I felt that even though, again, I appreciate early White Wolf's attempts at representation, that sometimes it was really off. And in that case, it was really, really, really off. And so I feel like in Changeling 20th, we didn't see any update on them. And so I'd love to do something with them. And then after that, I know a few Mage fans know this, but the one line in Mage 20th about one of the new disparate factions, the Itzat, was actually something that I wrote and came up with and discussed with Seder at the time. and I have been desperate to write that whole group and a whole tradition book style thing on them since we originally were talking about Mage 20th before it came out. So
I want you to do that.
I agree.
Same. Erica, is there one for you?
I was actually going to say Wraith up before JF said Wraith, but then he mentioned Changeling, and I was reminded that I am absolutely positively in love with it. And he's absolutely right. There hasn't really been enough done with it to bring it up to modern times, or even just to like supplement, with different ideas and whatever. So I'd really like to take a deep dive into Changeling and not necessarily supplement it, but maybe bring it up to where all of the rest of the lines are coming to an end. It'd be interesting, I think, to be able to be a part of wrapping Changeling up the same way that everything else has been wrapped up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had an answer, and then Erica and James both mentioned Changeling, and now
the three of us, I guess, are gonna.
Come on, let's do it.
Storytell as well.
Just saying, here's your writing staff. Or if
So I would
you're watching
really
at home.
love to do an update of the British Isles setting, the Isles of Avalon setting for Changeling. It was an odd one when it was written, and I think it could certainly benefit from some more kind of contemporary experience of 21st century Britain, and in all its grim dark glory. But also, please let me rewrite the Orphan Survival Guide.
That book is dear to my heart. It's my probably second or third favorite Mage supplement.
Same. I love
Very, very
the
good.
hell out of it. It is also definitely one that it's very much a product of its time, I think it's fair to say.
Right. That and Destiny's Price, which is really one of my favorite books. But
Yeah.
like so hard to read with a modern lens. I mean, it was hard to read then in the best way. But yeah. I suppose I can answer that question too, sort of. And I'm gonna be really frustrated in public for a minute. I wrote it, or I developed it. It's done. It's being, but I can't tell you a thing about it. So I sat in a Denny's 25 years ago, said a book by name to my friends, and said that would be my dream book, and I got to work on it. So now I can die happy. But a close second, and I promise you won't be able to get me to shut up about it once I can talk about it. Secondly, though, my very close second would be I would love to do a complete Orpheus reimagining. That would be super duper fun. I absolutely deeply adore Orpheus. I think it's it's not perfect, but it's really close to it for what they were attempting to do with the original sort of miniseries. Oh, it's really good. Just quality stuff. I would love a chance to mess around with that. And no, sadly, Craig Oxborough, it was not Rage Across Denny's, though I'm sure that would also be a fun supplement.
I volunteer to write that one.
Look in the STV vault.
As someone back in the olden days when you could smoke in a Denny's, we used to go there and spend several hours just basically drinking coffee and occasionally buying a pastry and gaming. And so we did things like figure out how much damage would it do if I hit this person with this coffee cup. It was a common conversation. So I think there's a development space for Rage Across Denny's. Sure.
Someone pitch it to Denny's. Get their corporate dollar.
Right. Yeah. Hey, look, if Wendy's can have a game, Denny's can get in on that sweet TTRPG money.
Also, I moved for the next Kickstarter high tier to include Travis runs a game for you in a Wisconsin
Yeah, in the Denny's.
It starts
in
at
the
2 in the
Denny's.
morning.
the very last Denny's with the smoking section.
Right.
And you have to show up
The
at
halcyon
least
days.
slightly drunk, otherwise
Yeah.
you can't get in because
Yeah,
it's
but-
Denny's.
No, you show up after you're done with the bars. Like that's like you go have some
Right.
fun, go dancing first, and then show up and be like, all right,
Show
what
up
am
at
I
Denny's.
playing?
Part of the
Yep.
ticket is the last goth club in like Madison, Wisconsin.
Yeah, the premier goth club of Madison, Wisconsin.
One and the same.
Don't
Yeah.
don't knock the Madison goth scene. You're gonna hear about it until the end of your days.
All four of them are going to be very, very, very excited. No, I love Madison. It's a nice little beacon of something that vaguely resembles reason, surrounded by the rest of Wisconsin. So on oh wow, this is like hearing the braying death of the '90s. Thank you, and also why? We've been nice to you. Why are you coming at us like this? So anything? Just looking to see if we have any other questions. I haven't seen anything pop up, but so feel free because we got about 12 minutes left on the panel, as long as time is still functioning in a linear fashion. So if you can find out who has the rights to Whole, I will absolutely pitch the 20th anniversary edition to it. Chat. This Human Occupied Landfill was fun. So is there any element, anything, any general World of Darkness or very, very specific odd esoterica that we have not touched upon? See, I worked your name, and it's like when they say the name of the show in the TV show.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you would like to explore, or that you feel any like personal goal thing that you have gotten to realize, that you've gotten to say like, oh, I really wanted to touch on this, and I have gotten to get my fingerprints on. Pretty awesome. Does anything stick out in your mind? We'll start with Erica because I inadvertently used your Twitter handle.
Let's see. I'm really just grateful to have had the opportunity to work on what I have worked on. Nothing really specific about, any of it. Werewolf is dear to my heart, so I loved working on the apocalyptic record. I was so honored when Matthew and Laith reach out to ask, hey, you want to work on this? Like, absolutely, I want to work on this. And it was a lot of fun. It just, for me, as someone who grew up playing and running World of Darkness and Chronicles of Darkness games, I started out in Storyteller's Vault, and that was a lot of fun. I got to write what I wanted to write. People enjoyed it. I had a copper bestseller, so it seemed to do okay. But really having the opportunity to write for these books and have my name in there after author is just exciting enough. And I'm just so grateful to have had the opportunity for it.
Sweet. And who would you like to pass it to?
Since I passed it to Kat last time, let's do JF this time.
I don't know. You kind of took the words out of my mouth. Like, I think all of us, literally all of us here, have been fans since, if not the inception, like pretty early on, I imagine. And so getting a chance to put like your unique view on it, see your name in the books, all that stuff is really awesome. The first time I got to see my name in the book was under the special thanks thing in Mage 20th. And if you go look on my Facebook now, it's still like one of my background images, because I was so excited to have it there. I left it up there forever. Yeah, I don't know, like, honestly, Erica, everything Erica said, I feel really similar to. Like, it's a franchise that had a big impact on me and my life, and meant a lot to me, in ways that might seem like hokey and emotional, but are real. And I think that's part of why you play role-playing games, because they impact you emotionally and they affect you that way. And so being able to like be part of a wonderful group of writers who is able to do that for other people is a blessing.
Yeah, anything to add?
That, but also a much more like tawdry and trash answer. I snuck one of my player characters into a vampire bucket.
No, there is something to be said for that. Yeah,
If we want to admit to that, then
More than one over here.
So one?
And a non-zero number.
it is a non-zero. I like that answer. A non-zero number.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, this is. I'm gonna be a stereotypical nerd for a second here, but this is what I imagine it is like for a kid who grows up watching baseball and playing baseball and doing whatever those sports things are, and then they get to play for the Yankees. I mean, that's what it's like, right? You know,
That's what it feels like.
You're getting to be on the cool kids team, and again, back in the 90s, you see, there was such a, it was really kind of the first time you had some other games. You had some Shadowruns, you had some Rifts, you had some, other settings that gave you an opportunity to be away from D&D, which for a myriad of reasons may or may not have been desirable to folk, right? But the World of Darkness really, I don't think people who didn't, if you weren't there, you really don't get how much it was the first time you might see yourself in this world. Whether it be, as Jeff was pointing out, you're, a marginalized identity, or just somebody who's not, a stereotypical, jock or nerd, right? Whatever made you outside of standard issue human was somehow represented there, or could be somehow represented there, and it was done in a way that was as welcoming as possible at the time, but also with that little bit of edge and danger. So it's really kind of a cool team to play for. Put it that way. Yeah. We're down to the last 7 minutes. That's not necessarily significant in any way, shape, or form, except for is there anything that we have not touched on this panel that you want to get out into the world? And this time I'll start with JF.
I wasn't ready for this question.
Oh, I'll start with Kat, and JF can compose.
I was dealing with my dog who was misbehaving right up until the last second here. So
I am so sorry.
No, it's okay.
Guys, Gaucher has never misbehaved. He's a good boy.
Never. He never barks.
No.
Just tell him there's the Pugmire games later.
So, other books we'd like to write, other things we'd like to create?
No, just anything, whatever, anything that we haven't touched on yet.
Okay, I'm going to turn this into an excuse for a pitch, because then hopefully at least someone in the chat will go and make it for the Storyteller's Vault. Someone write me Changeling Age of Enlightenment. I'm really sad that Changeling never got anything other than a modern setting. Yes, I'm responding to a question somebody else asked in the chat. And right. I think, the Age of Enlightenment is also in many ways the Age of Banality, and I want to write it or see someone else write it.
Love it. Erica?
That is my Changeling apocalypse.
I love it. It's beautiful, and it should happen. So if you haven't done it, go on the vault and do it. Erica, do you have anything that you'd like to see put out into the world, or that you would like to put out in the world?
That's really tough. I think Kat probably took one of the best ideas that I could come up with. I think, really, and not even just Changeling, but really anything. I don't know, I'm going to be a generic encourager here. If you find something that you think is missing, put it out there. We need it, you need it. And this, I have found, is a really open and accepting and loving and encouraging community. So even if you put out a product that you think is not your best, someone out there is going to love it and they're going to find use for it. So that would be my piece of advice. It's just kind of a generic piece of advice, is if you find something that's missing, put it out there for us.
And let me just add one little thing to that too, where the Storyteller's Vault gains another. If you're creating for that community content, you get another slight advantage over those of us who are creating work for hire, which is that you can then go in 3, 4, 5 years later and edit it, or you can take feedback and make your book better and just set it back out into the universe, and without having to jump through the 70 billion hoops. There comes a point for all of us where we send our work off into the hands of others, and this is true from a writer, this is true from a developer, this is true for an editor, true for the artist. We send our work off, and then it's just out there now, and there's nothing else to be done about it. And we get to look back on it in 10 years and be like, did I really say that on purpose with my
The trick is for us, though, for the three of us, we could just be like, oh, the developer must have changed that at the end.
No, that I didn't have anything to
ask
do with
me when
that
I
one.
changed my sentence.
Yeah.
Exactly. Then I guess one last question from the audience. Do you want to work on another World of Darkness cookbook? If so, what recipes do you want included? I'm going to start real quick and just be like, I'm a fat person of convenience, so like I'm not a cook. I just kind of eat literally whatever is nearby. So I would be the worst person to work on a cookbook. Because all my recipes would be like something in a can. That would be my recipe.
Give me a World of Darkness takeout menu.
Human. I think those are your options.
I didn't know you loved the red talons so much.
You got me.
Exactly. Excuse me. How about you, Jeff? Any cookbook?
Oh man, there's a recipe that one of my tias does that is like fresh made, like that morning tortillas with the fat off the top of the milk bucket from the fresh milk cow on top of the tortilla, and that's the whole thing. And I think that belongs. I don't know which one, but that belongs somewhere in there.
Yeah, we'll find.
Ooh, that sounds really good.
Literally everywhere.
Right, squeeze it into every character type.
Yeah.
Well, surprisingly, we have reached the end. Time has marched on, but before we run off, I do want to remind everyone that we have there are still games that have open seats in them over at the Start.Playing Games site that should be scrolling through the chat. Has all of our convention information, all that sort of stuff. Tickets for those games go to support the Badana Group, which is an incredible charity that this whole convention is in part to help finance. And you should familiarize yourself with their work and support them either by playing one of our wonderful games or with direct donations. Please check out the Badana Group and the work that they do. I'll go ahead and have everybody sign off, say your goodbyes and where people can find you, what they should be looking out for, and then we'll get out of the way for the next panel. So let's start things off with Kat this time. Please give us your pertinence, where people can find you, and the next thing they should be looking out for.
Sure. Kat Evans. I live on Twitter. You can find me at Perpetual Gloom there. What is the next thing you should look out for? I don't know what's coming out when, but you should come hang out and ask major questions more.
Indeed. That is fair. Erica, how about you?
Erica, I am she/her. I run Werewolf the Forsaken on Thursdays. You can find that on my Twitch channel /SO_Erica. I will be starting a Hunter the Vigil game as well, same place, Friday nights. If you're interested in either of those, you can catch me on Twitch. You can also find me on Twitter at @SO_Erica, where I am extremely active, love answering questions, love engaging with the community. So come hang out, ask questions, entertain me. Let's have fun.
Sweet. JF?
I think my things are on here, but on Twitter, I'm at JF High, and I operate on Twitter in bursts because I find that it destroys my word count. My daily word count. I don't know how Kat feels about that. But sometimes I'll be there blowing it up. And then also I'm here on Twitch as Digidroid. I'm currently a little bit on hiatus because I've been so busy with work and school lately, but I plan to come back soon. And honestly, I know a lot of people aren't as comfortable with this, but I don't. If you want to follow me on Facebook too, like go for it. Like I'll allow anyone until you make a mess of it, and then I'll get rid of you. So
that's fair. That is absolutely
and that's my name, so you can find my name on Facebook. It's James Sambrano.
Great. And I guess that leaves me. I'm Travis Legge. I'm at Travis Legge with a couple of silent letters tacked onto the end for good measure, but it's written below me. Pretty much everywhere on the internet except on Twitch, where I'm Plastic Age Plays. When I'm not running games or panels on the Onyx Path channel, I run games and stuff over there. We're playing Monday, Scarred Lands: A Family Affair. Wednesday, Extreme Drowis, which is just a all drow Forgotten Realms campaign that's turned into a complete shit show, and I highly recommend. It's a lot of fun. And then Thursdays we're running The Witcher for the next couple of weeks, which is also a lot of fun. The Witcher tabletop game from Artel Sorian. I'm going to go ahead and take us over to, I think, Vorpal Tales is currently running a
Deviant game.
Classified. Oh, is it Deviant that's running?
I think it's
right
Deviant today. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go see what they're up to. Let's bounce over there, and until then, please, if you have not yet done so and are medically able, get yourself vaccinated. There's literally no reason not to do it. It's good for you. It's good for everyone you love, and it'll increase your cell phone signal. So by all means, please. Furthermore, just be good to yourselves. Make sure you're buying the lovely products that all of these folks have worked so hard on over at your friendly local gaming store. If it's Onyx Path stuff and your friendly local gaming store isn't carrying it, remind them that they can. They can get it through Studio 2. They can get it through Indie Press Revolution. And there's always everything we put up is available through drivethrurpg.com. Thank you so much to my fellow panelists for making this such an enjoyable conversation. Thank you for the audience for putting up with our silliness. And we will see you again real soon.